Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Paul Donaher, and I'm a Director of Client Services here at Radius. The topic of today's webinar will be the mindset of the small business owner and implications for brands everywhere. And firstly, as I always say in these occasions, I hope everyone is staying safe and doing well in the current environment. The webinar today will be given by these two gentlemen that you can see beside me here, Glenn Staada, who is the Senior Vice President of Client Services here at Radius, and Hank Artz, who is Research Director at Truist Financial. As always, the webinar is scheduled for a maximum of 45 minutes, and if you'd like to do so, please type a question into the screen on the software if you have a question for Hank or Glenn. Of the 45 minutes, I'll do this quick introduction. Then Hank and Glenn will speak for about 30 minutes, so we should have some time for Q&A for the chaps at the end. During today's webinar, among other topics, you'll come away with an enhanced understanding as to 4 key areas. Trends from recent research that we have conducted among small business owners. The forward-looking mindset and needs of small business owners, relationships with brands and their business partners, and implications for corporate marketing leaders. And so, to our two speakers. Glenn is a senior member of our client services team here at Radius with over 20 years of experience in the industry. Focusing on financial services and other key verticals as well over the years. He's a frequent public contributor and speaker on an array of topics, having done so both here and overseas. Outside of work, Glenn is well known to his friends and his colleagues as a barbecue aficionado and as a dab hand with a nice piece of brisket. Thank you, Glenn. Hank, as I said, is a research director at Truist Financial, where he has designed and led innovative research initiatives for over 25 years now. In that time, Hank has dealt with many different topics for the many different areas for the bank: corporate brand and advertising, small business, middle market, corporate and investment banking, treasury management, to name but a few. Additionally, he's worked across those areas in brand, advertising, communications, and strategic planning. And it's this combination of financial services knowledge and marketing acumen that allows Hank to provide a unique perspective in approaching business questions and distilling insights. Hank is a graduate of Washington and Lee University, and he and his wife live in Richmond, Virginia, with Harry, their faithful golden retriever. And with that introduction, Glenn, take it from here, please.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be with everybody today. So as Paul did our introduction, he mentioned we're going to look at a holistic view of the small business owner. So we'll start with how small business owners feel about the current environment and how they're adapting. We'll then move into a discussion on what they need to run their businesses successfully moving forward. We'll touch on how they feel about the companies, business partners, brands that they choose to work with. And then finally, we'll wrap it all up and talk about why this all matters for corporate leaders charged with brand growth. So the insights that we're presenting here come from both existing and new research utilizing various techniques. For the existing research, Radius is a custom research firm that works with many clients like Truist across many sectors. And a lot of our work comes with small business owners as our audience. So we've looked across the several dozen studies we've done over the past few years to use as a source of insights. We then partnered with Truist and fielded some new research, fielded in the fall of 2021. So we had one survey that was very qualitative and open-ended, and those questions were fielded to the Truist community of small business owners. And then we did a more quantitatively focused survey fielded to a robust U.S. national sample of small business owners. That was about 250 of them. And then just recently, as we were preparing this session, we access social listening to layer another data point onto our insights. And typically, we take this approach in the work that we do with our clients because we find integrating multiple data points and data sources, and in this case, looking at different studies, it provides us with a deeper and more well-rounded understanding than any single survey could. And more, we're finding that the best-in-class research programs pull in learning from multiple data sources. So I'm gonna pause here for a little bit and bring in Hank to the discussion. And I'd love for Hank, for you to tell our audience a little bit more about the Truist small business owner community and how you use it.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me be part of this webinar today. Really excited to be here. Little background, we've had communities in place at our organization going back probably 10 or 12 years, both with consumers and businesses. But the current community that we have, we've had, we started that back about 2 years ago in its current form. We have roughly close to 3,000 consumers and businesses recruited. It's a mix of both clients as well as prospective clients. We use the profiling data that we capture when we recruit members so that we can segment and target different audiences based on demographics and firmographics and product ownership, what their attitudes and behaviors are. For us, the main benefit of our community is just the speed, the ability to field quick research activities. We can design and field and have insights within a matter of days, and in some cases it's even hours, depending upon the nature of the research that we're doing. This was really helpful for us as we were going through the pandemic and trying to manage through that, and trying to keep our finger on the pulse of consumer sentiment as that was ebbing and flowing. We look at how business owners are feeling about the economy and the outlook for their business, and of course that's been changing quite a lot. So we're able to track and in many cases anticipate shifts in attitudes and behavior through our community.
And Hank, do you feel like your usage of your community or the demand from your internal end clients is more than it was a few years ago? And is this something that you think you'll continue to leverage moving forward, and why?
Definitely, we have seen the demand for research through the community really picking up pace. Certainly as insights have become more embedded in how we make decisions as an organization, our business leaders are turning to us now for help in answering just a specific question, or if they want to test a new idea. It doesn't require a big complex multi-phase study, but the online community is a great place for us. It's a tool that we use for those quick hit types of research needs.
Great. So that provides great context for us as we get into what we learn, just thinking about how we collect this type of information. So before going into the insights in the new research that we fielded to the community and in the national sample, we want to look at all of those studies that I mentioned that we've conducted over the past few years to give us kind of a baseline of what we know about the small business owner. And from all of those studies, and we looked at those done pre-COVID, right before COVID, and then all through the COVID pandemic, we get a very clear picture of the dynamic makeup of the small business owner. At a very high level, and we'll show some slides on this, we see them being a very passionate and entrepreneurial audience. And really what comes out about them is how much they care about different people in their lives. And this extends, past their family to their small communities to their customers. From the research that we've done in the middle of the pandemic, obviously they all articulate that they've faced the greatest challenge of their professional careers through the pandemic. But what's interesting and what comes out is many have been able to rise above it, shift, and actually improve their businesses during this time. And we think that's pretty interesting, and it's really kind of speaks about the makeup of the small business owner. So as we look at the themes from all of the research we've done, again, across many sectors such as technology, financial services, across the board, what we see is these consistent themes. So small business owners are intrinsically motivated self-starters. They tend to be very aggressive, very vocal, and they are achievers. However, nearly all of the small business owners across all the work we do indicate that they are time poor. They are pulled in many directions and don't have enough time in the day to do all they need to do. They tend to wear many hats. They're the seller in their business, the doer, the tech person, the bookkeeper, the marketer. At the same time, we find that the small business owners, they tend to be extroverts. They value relationships, and that's with customers, colleagues, peers, supplier, vendors, even brands that they use. They tend to be very connected and communicative within and across their various networks. And finally, we see strong evidence when we ask them about the number of products that they use in a certain category, what they would like to use. There's evidence that they want to be brand loyal and they want to use a few trusted providers. The more that a company or brand can do for them, the better in their minds. We also see from the past research that the small business owner as an individual often does not silo their business and personal lives. They are essentially one and the same. And what they've told us is the impact of the pandemic, it really has blurred those lines even further. They don't know where their work life ends and their personal life begins. And in fact, in looking across several of the studies, we've got data points showing over 50% use both the same provider. They use the same provider in both business and personal life. And the categories where we see this happening the most is technology. So for both hardware, software, cloud type usage, phone, internet, banking, and insurance providers. So there is this cross-pollination where the small business owner is bringing quite a bit of needs and business to the partners that they're working with. So Hank, as you think about this, I know Truist is a retail bank, is a small business bank, works in a lot of different spaces. I'd love to hear from your vantage point the pros of understanding and marketing to the entire small business owner, and that's inclusive of their personal and professional needs.
Right. Yeah. Good question. I think we get very focused on marketing to business owners, and we constantly have to remind ourselves that these business owners, first and foremost, are individual consumers, and for the vast majority of them, their personal lives and their professional lives are very much intertwined. That's definitely the case in financial services. In fact, we've seen that for most business owners, their personal wealth is tied very much to the value of their business. And in turn, they want more of an integrated experience across their business and their consumer banking relationship. So we try to be mindful of that as we're designing and positioning our products, how we engage with clients, and it's really important, particularly in the digital experience. And oftentimes we're finding that the expectations that they have are set by what they experience as consumers. Whether that's the Apple experience or the Amazon experience, that consumer type of relationship and those expectations translate over to the business and what they're looking from a business experience as well.
Interesting. And just curious, are there any watch outs to be aware of in terms of marketing to the small business owner in the entirety as them as a person?
Yeah, I mean, the flip side is that some business owners want to keep their personal and their business relationships totally separate. and keep, a pretty wide distance between the two. So from a marketing and servicing perspective, we have to be pretty flexible and adaptable to how the client wants to structure their relationship. So, certainly there's a real research opportunity for us to continue to understand the client experience and how that changes and how that might be unique for each business owner, depending upon how they want to structure their relationship.
So it really sounds to me like it's pick your spots, understand you're dealing with an individual who's complex as business personal, but know where you want to toggle more on the business side versus more of the personal side.
Yeah, I think the name of the game is flexibility and adaptability, and putting the client more in the driver's seat as to how he or she wants to interact with your brand.
Right. Perfect. So, before we move towards some of the new research that we collected, obviously, no discussion of the small business owner over the past few years can be done so without thinking about COVID-19. I mentioned earlier, really many have been impacted greatly, especially we know some sectors like hospitality, restaurants, obviously airlines, they're still dealing with many disruptions and challenges. When you look at the local small business owner and you talk to them about the challenges, we've really seen a lot of kind of, pull up the boots, kind of hunker in and get messy and be scrappy. We've seen businesses selling things they've never sold before in ways or channels that they've never done before, and really they were forced to do that or die. And many of these entrepreneurs have driven their businesses to step up. What's interesting is we definitely see them talk about the move to technology and everything they're doing. But what's interesting is in some of these late adopters, some of these businesses that maybe were late to the tech game, now that they've been forced into it, they really see the benefits for both how they manage their business and their vendors and suppliers, as well as their customer relationships, and they don't see going back. So technology is huge. And then obviously, change in marketing and advertising, shifting to reaching consumers and employees where they're hunkering at home and digitally. Small business owners tell us they're doing less on-premise signage, advertising, that sort of thing. And they still mention looking forward, needing a lot of help in terms of business continuity issues, closures, supply chain, staffing, government actions. So then looking at the new research that we collected, a lot of the questions centered on mindsets, emotions, motivations of small business owners, at least before we move into the relationship on brands. Really what we'll see on the next several slides is that small business owners are driven by a complex, wide range of emotions, a lot of positive, a lot of negative, they all come together, a lot of motivations in terms of why they are in business and really what their small business means to them. Really what we see is many are, driven by a lot of these deep seated emotions, and they're so far under the surface that it creates a challenge for insights pros and researchers to truly understand what makes small business owners tick to be able to act against some of the insights. So Hank, at this point, it probably makes sense to maybe pull up and talk about the different qualitative and quantitative research approaches that, in your experience, you have found to work best with small business owners.
Yeah, whenever we're approaching a research question, certainly we consider the factors, that everybody does around research design, what methodology or methodologies would be most appropriate. But one of the things that we try to keep at the forefront is a guiding principle around the respondent experience. And so we try to design whatever research activity that we're doing to make it as simple, as intuitive, as hopefully brief and enjoyable for the participant, because we find that when those things are kind of guiding the design, that you end up with richer insights, more reliable data. It's very important for small business owners who are, as we've already talked about, very time strapped, and they're more likely to participate and be engaged in the research activity when it works for them, when it suits their schedule. And that could be 10 o'clock at night, or it could be taking a survey on their mobile device, or participating in a focus group that we schedule during a breakfast session. It's really meeting the respondent where they are and where it's going to be best for them.
Yes, and I see, I can say we validate that as well in terms of what we see from our other clients that we're doing small business work with. So let's go ahead and kind of break down the small business owner. As I mentioned, we see that they have a range of emotions when we ask them to think about their business. In this case, we asked them to give us the first 3 emotions that come to mind. We told them they could be positive, negative, or neutral, and we gave them no words to kind of prompt them. And what they tell us in terms of the most common word is happy, which is interesting. In the fall of 2021, when this was fielded, things were really hard for them. But the most common word in terms of the small business, think about their business, it was happy. And we'll see there's a lot of mentions around pride and empowerment. So happy comes out quite strongly, as well as also the fact that they're making me stress. When we dig in and ask, okay, well, why are you happy? Tell us about the reasons why you're happy. We get a lot of underlying drivers that link to the altruistic needs they have for doing right by a wide range of people in their lives, from customers to employees to family and to the community. They really have a sense of they're serving a greater purpose through their business, and that's what makes them happy. So what you'll see on the screen here are a few of the verbatim comments that we got from the research that we conducted. And you'll see things like, I can employ people and have them be able to provide for their families. I get to do what I feel is right by my customers. So again, this idea of doing right by others is really what drives this feeling of happiness. At the same time, we mentioned stress was, almost a polar dichotomy from the happiness. Is there's also stress. Obviously, the pandemic is amplifying stress. What's interesting when you read and analyze the comments, the causes of stress are really linked to those things that bring happiness, and the potential for the pandemic to disrupt the ability to do that, right? So we're losing employees, the livelihoods of my people and families relying on my decisions. There's a feeling of not being able to continue this sense of giving back through the business, and that's really what's causing a lot of the stress. Past that, other mentions often relate to things that show passion and show that the small business owner is proud. We get quotes of, I love my job and look forward to seeing my patients. Even the one on the right, in terms of proud, the sense of accomplishment. Started with hardly any knowledge, and after 20 years of hard work, I have a successful business. So again, you start to get a picture of the makeup of the small business owner and the entrepreneur. When we then ask them what makes them, what really motivates them to run the business the way they do, you see even further the things that rise to the top are all related to guaranteeing freedom and empowerment for the small business owner. So of a wide range of things that we asked them to say were some level of a motivator in how they run their business, the ability to make their own schedule came out the highest. followed by complete control over work life, and then work for myself and no one else. So again, this idea of freedom and empowerment is you're thinking about helping these small business owners with the products and services that many of you offer. How do you help them to achieve these needs or satisfy these motivators? We also see some validation recently as to some of the things that we heard early on in the pandemic in terms of moving to a different way of doing business and really embracing technology and digital operations. So we have found that through the pandemic, 71% of all small business owners are selling more products and services to customers online. 71% are increasing their social media activity, potentially replacing some of the in-person experiences that they may not have been able to have as often. And then 70% are doing more virtual interactions with the vendors or suppliers they're using. So again, this idea of technology really being critical in terms of bridging the gap and some of the issues caused by the pandemic. So moving forward past the mindset and needs, we also are going to explore how they think about the partners, products, services, brands that they use and value. And we'll see on the next several slides that small business owners tell us it's critical for these brands that they work with to be an embodiment of what they value. And really, it's about how they act and serve their customers. That's how they want to be treated. And that, above a lot of things, is the most important thing to the small business owner. And what they're telling us, and I think more now than ever, small business owners need to see that the brands they choose and the partners they choose to work with show them that their business matters. So Hank, I'd love to ask you right now at this point, in what ways do you find marketing to small business owners to be more challenging than marketing to consumers, given this kind of complex makeup that we've talked about over the last few slides?
Well, I mean, even though there are a lot of similarities between consumers, marketing to consumers, and small businesses, there's some stark differences. I mean, running a business is, of course, very challenging, very time-consuming. And so one of our biggest hurdles from a marketing standpoint is simply getting business owners' attention and keeping their focus. So that really puts the onus on us to have our marketing and our ways of engaging with clients to be very clear, very concise, very relevant. We're all about trying to serve up the right message at the right moment, using the right channel. And we do a lot of research to understand what those relevant messages need to be. So how can they be more compelling? How can they be more meaningful? We try to cut out as much of the marketing speak. And then we also try to understand what the customer journey and how they make buying decisions and when they're most likely to be in the market. So all of that really impacts how we market to them, and certainly is vastly different in those respects than marketing to consumers that may have a less or fewer factors that they're considering in making decisions.
And do you feel like, and we'll get into this a little bit, but I'd love to get your POV before we get into this. Do you feel like small business owners have a higher bar in terms of the types of, when they're marketed to or when they're being given a message or being sold a product? Do they have a higher bar?
In some cases, I think businesses we found very price conscious, especially when it comes to weighing purchase decisions, looking at their business profitability and their cash flow situation. So price considerations come into play quite often, but then, and that tends to be a lot of the functional types of factors that are driving decisions. But equally, or if not more important, we're finding the emotional factors are also important. And so the idea is, as you've been talking about, demonstrating value, trusted partnership. In many cases, those things trump price.
Right.
So businesses are looking for their partners to demonstrate those sort of emotional benefits, the things that they value.
Yeah, and that leads right into this next slide, is where we get to the characteristics that small business owners tell us they're looking for in business partners and the brands that they use. They mention things that are more kind of intangibles in terms of honesty, trustworthy, reliable, and showing them that they care. So these are the mentions that came out the most when we asked this question. What we also find is that showing that a business matters is critically important. So 84% of the small business owners in our study told us that either all of the businesses they work with or many of the businesses they work with demonstrate to them that their business matters. Essentially for them, that seems to be table stakes in terms of choosing the brand and the business to work with to support their business. Drilling deeper with qualitative under the idea of showing that a business and a business owner matters, we followed up by asking some questions about the types of specific behaviors that a brand or business could exhibit to show that a business owner matters. We got a lot of rich, great verbatim comments that really coalesced around these three themes. So be an extension of my business. Show me, have a personal stake in my business. Know me, understand what we do and what we need, and then build a two-way relationship. So develop mutual respect, identify shared goals and values, make meaningful connections. Remember, we talked about the small business owner really earlier on embracing and valuing connections and relationships, and they're playing that back to us again here in this new research. And really this quote on the left really says a lot. Business partners need to show sincerity and care to my business needs for me to believe my business matters to them. So this idea of care. Going deeper with the qualitative, we also wanted to understand what care meant in business, and perhaps more pronounced due to the time that we fielded this and being in the middle of the pandemic, actually a year and a half in, and really having a lot of hardship on folks. For them, a lot of people mentioned care means don't just be here with me in the good times, talk to me about how my business is going to grow, but also be here and support me in the hard times and protect my business in the hard times. So support, protect, those are really the things that embody care. And ultimately, care is one of the things that small business owners are looking for from the businesses that they're working with. So finally, we as we're pulling this together, we wanted to demonstrate or at least explore the idea that many brands and categories may not seem overtly relevant in terms of selling to small business owners for business purposes, for instance, toothpaste. But we wanted to kind of look at the value for being supportive of small businesses for even some of those consumer-centric brands. And we find evidence that there are financial and brand positive reasons to position around supporting small businesses. So the first thing that came out was we found a few quotes in the research that we did, and we weren't seeking this in terms of supporting our mission, but what we found is for many for-profits and not-for-profits, they're structured around the common good, and they look for business partners and brands that understand and support these missions. So one quote that came out, truly understanding our mission, which is serving underserved populations, and take advantage of opportunities to partner with us in an authentic way. So it's not just selling things that the business uses, it goes further in terms of demonstrating and supporting a mission. And in addition, we looked at social listening, and we went out to the general population, and we searched for mentions on social media related to small businesses and small business owners. And we find a lot of positive buzz. Looking at the scores on the left, those are all indexed out of 100 and typically are very positive and high scores in terms of the types of comments that are made on social media, the sentiment, how positive they are, and how passionate people are about them. And the conversation topics that ladder up to those high passion scores, they're about supporting community businesses, helping entrepreneurs market, start, and grow. You see all the hashtags about shop small, shop local, small business. So we see a lot of evidence that there is good reason for brands to support small businesses, even if they don't have a specific B2B sales function. So Hank, I'd love to hear a little bit about, on this point, how Truist thinks about supporting small businesses and missions for the common good.
Yeah. Even though our bank, Truist, is a fairly large brand, I think we're like the 6th largest bank in the U.S. right now. Our focus really is on supporting local communities. So we try to, even though we're a big brand, we try to act like a small brand and connect more at the local level. Our bankers live and work in these communities, in the same communities where small businesses are located. We have a real vested interest in making sure that the local communities are strong, that they thrive and grow. And we really see small businesses as being very much the fabric that kind of ties communities together. They're the ones that are generating the revenue that support the public services. They employ community, people in the community. So there's this real interdependency, and that's how we see our brand as being embedded in at the local level and in supporting these communities.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. It's very compelling. So finally, we're close to the end of our time, so just want to wrap up what we've learned. So hope we've demonstrated that small business owners really are super consumers. They can be buyers and brand users for multiple parts of their lives, their personal lives, their professional lives. They think about accounting software. They could use it at home, at work. They've got huge networks. They're pretty engrossed in their communities. They could be very, very strong advocates. However, right now, they continue to need support facing the paradigm shifts related to COVID-19 disruptions. And they expect the brands and businesses that want to work with them to support them in this time. We see that their makeup, that really, kind of this dynamic entrepreneurial spirit pushes them to innovate and excel. But at the same time, we see evidence that it makes them a challenge to deeply understand, hence the need to really use multiple holistic research techniques to get underneath the surface with them. We see that they're very hard to impress, but extremely loyal when you do so. So if you satisfy their most critical needs and show them they matter, they will want to form a long-term and sticky relationship with you. And as Hank was just talking about, we see evidence, and we can take Truist's lead, that supporting small businesses and communities generates social buzz and is brand positive, even if you're not overtly selling products to businesses for business purposes. Finally, just looking at the implication for corporate leaders, we think that there is definitely an opportunity for brands to take a surround strategy for the small business owner, surround their entire life to help them achieve their goals, serve their direct and indirect business needs, their personal needs, support their communities. And that even gets to, help them to live their best physical and mental wellness that they can so that they're ready to hit the day. Things like that. Again, your products and services can help them be the best they can be. Seek relationships, even for the low touch, low intensity decisions, and show the small business owners that they matter to you. They understand how they treat their customers, and they typically would tell us they treat their customers with white glove service. That's how they want to be treated. Help them to overcome their greatest challenges, especially now during the pandemic. Show them it isn't all about making money right now and it will go off in the future. And obviously, tech is critical. So make sure you're delivering the same experience across all touch points, and that you can deliver and show them that they matter across technology interfaces. And again, keep your finger on the pulse of the small business owner through holistic insights generation. This could be qualitative and quantitative, social listening, primary and secondary research. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Paul. And thank you, everybody.
I appreciate it. We do have a number of questions for you guys. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, so we'll try and squeeze in a couple. Hank, this might be one specifically for you. You both talked about layering different research methodologies and data sources to get well-rounded insights. What's the best way to go about reporting to stakeholders in these situations? I think the question is getting at, do you wait for every phase to be completed? Do you roll it out sequentially? What's your thoughts on that, Hank?
That's a great question. We, at our organization, tend to work very cross-functionally and collaboratively. And so that means bringing our research partners and the stakeholders along throughout a research project. So they're very much involved in kind of learning as we go through the different stages of a research project. We may start with some secondary research and learn what we can from that. We go back and look at all the research projects that we've done in the past that might have relevant information. We might do some qualitative work and learn from that, and then that helps inform some of the quantitative work that we may need to do. But all along the way, our stakeholders are kind of involved in the learning and applying that, so that we're not waiting until the end to hit the ground running on a new initiative.
I'm going to combine a couple of questions here, guys. There's a number of questions about brand loyalty and switching. I guess in general, can we talk a little bit about why small business owners may be more brand loyal than other segments? And there's also a couple of questions around, has that changed during the pandemic versus prior time periods? Obviously, we've got only so much research we can talk about here, but a general question, I think, in terms of loyalty and switching behavior, and if we can throw in a comment about now versus before, that would answer 2 or 3 questions that have popped up.
Sure. Glenn, I'll just jump in here real quick and then let you comment. But we definitely found that as a financial services company that going through the pandemic, small businesses were really struggling. Many of them, unfortunately, didn't survive. They had to close up or shut down either temporarily or open and then reclose. All on the way, they were looking for their partners, whether that's banks or advisors or others to help them manage through that. And consequently, the brands that stepped up and played an active role in helping them were ultimately rewarded, I think, with more loyalty. They were less apt to switch at the conclusion or resolution of a lot of the challenges that they were facing. So we actually saw when we stepped up with, whether that's with PPP loans or support and advice and counsel to our clients, they were far more engaged and connected with us and more loyal over the long haul.
It's a great
Yeah,
perspective.
I would just add on to that we've seen in some of the research that we've conducted a few things. Number one, when you ask them how they pick the businesses that they work with and you kind of do a driver analysis, makes things easy for me, usually comes out close to the top. And, things like price are more towards the bottom in terms of how they're picking their partners. Again, they have so much going on that if they find one company that they can do a lot with and they don't have to maintain a lot of relationships, that makes things easy for them. Also, every decision that they make is just more critical because of the nature of being a small business. So every time they have to try someone else new, it's a risk. So what we find is once small business owners find something that works, they want to stay with it. It's one decision off of their plate.
Helpful, guys. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Hank, so much for being part of this with us. We appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for your attendance, for your questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to everyone. We're at time. Appreciate it, folks. We'll be back in Q2 with the next webinar. But in the meantime, everybody stay safe. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.